Hi there, I'm Paddy Byrne and welcome to Freefall 365 Live. The reason I'm laughing is because I'm messing about with live streams and this is the fourth time I've came on and I've forgotten to share my screen because I've got so caught up in the moment. Anyway, it's live. Loads can go wrong. So today's live stream, broadcast, whatever you want to call it, is going to talk about business process flows and how to set them in Power using Power Automate. This is just a wee tip and a wee requirement that I had from a client. So without further ado, I'll explain the requirement. The requirement is that we're using Dynamics 365 for customer service. Now you can use the Dynamics 365 customer service, any other Dynamics 365's apps, or just the general common data service, Power Apps, etc. We have a case entity. Well, it could be an entity. If we open up, we have the default phone to case process along the top. What we want to do is we want to change that using Power Automate, and not the requirement is that based on the attributes and the fields, or the columns as they're called now, that get entered into the case form, the business process changes once it gets saved accordingly. Now, this is a requirement I've done quite a while ago, but not since business process flows of old, before they had the entity in the back, when it was just a case of updating the field on the form with a GUID. And in this instance, I want to use Power Automate, so not classic workflow, and it's the new business process flows. It's the one that has the entity in the background. So what I've done, I have created a test case process, and that's it there, just one step. It's active, I'm an owner, and I have the default one on the case form. I'm going to create a flow in Power Automate that changes that. For test samples, I'm just going to trigger it on case update. So to do that, if we click new and we'll click flow, and we'll use the common data service current environment connector for the trigger. We will say update. The entity name is cases, and we'll just put the scope as user for now. I'm not going to put any filter attributes on that. I'm just going to do it on every update of the case in a production environment, or if you're doing this for real, you maybe want to filter that out so that it only triggers when a case, when the field that determines the case is changed. So that'll do us for now for our test. We'll add another step, and again you might want to add some conditions around this. I'm just going to go straight in and set the business process flow to my new one. And again, we're using the common data service current environment connector. There's a action in here called perform a bound action and perform an unbound action. It's the unbound action one that we wanted to use. Now, performing an unbound action, what that does is that it calls an action within Dynamics 365, within the common data service. And Dynamics 365 comes with a load of these out of the box actions, and one of them is set process. This is the same way you do it now as you were if you were using classic workflow. You would use a workflow and call that action from the workflow. But we're not using workflow, we're using Power Automate. So this takes a wee while to load. Sometimes you'll get an error if you try and search too quickly, but the action that we're looking for is the set process action. That's the one there. And you've got three attributes on there, properties on there, sorry. You've got target, new process, and new process instance. The only two that we need for this is target and new process. The new process instance will go and get another business process flow, an existing business process flow, and assign it to the case. But we just want to create a new one, so we're going to populate the target property and the new process property. And we populate that. We'll populate the target one. The target is the case, so we need to use the OData name for cases, which is incidents / and then we want to put the case ID. We can get that from our trigger. The new process, we want to hit the workflows entity. The only reason I know that is, I mean, you can look it up, but the only reason I know that is because I've worked with a workflow entity before. So we're doing workflows / and we're going to put the ID of our business process flow in here. Now again, in a production environment, you might want to put in code. You wouldn't want to hard code this into your flow. You might want to store it somewhere else in a config table, or even on whatever, if it's a lookup that's set in the attribute, even on that lookup on that record. But again, for this example, we just want to do an example. I just want to set it. You get it from the URL in your business process flow designer, and it's right at the end there where it says ID equals %7b. You don't get the 7b. You just grab that number there, and these represent curly brackets at each side. So let's copy that. We will go back to our flow, paste it in there, and we'll save that. Now that's saved, let's do a test. So what we're expected to see here when we update this case, which has flow into case process, flow on the top. I'll just update any field here, we'll update query, click save. You should see the flow run, and this process here should change to our test business process flow. I've found when I've been testing this, calling these actions, that the test fails with an error, but in the background the flow actually succeeds. I think this time we're lucky. It's probably the only bit of luck I've had tonight. Yeah, see, it's not working. Spoke too soon. So that'll sit there waiting, doing nothing. But if I go back here, it looks like it's run, it's succeeded. And this happens to me all the time when I first create this flow. And let's see if it has run. So I'm going to hit Control F5 and drum roll here. What happens? Fingers crossed. Yes, we see the test process flow are all on the top of the screen. Test case process. So that's worked. So that explains how you set a business process flow in Dynamics 365 or the common data service based on, using Power Automate. And again, in a production environment, you'd want to check what field and do a specific field, check some attributes on the case form, push them into your flow and say, set this business process flow based on these fields. That's all for me in this live stream. Have a good evening.